Anime.tv is
Today
here.
I'm going to explain an action fiction anime called World Conquest Zvezda Plot. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. With his family issues piling up one after the other, middle school student Asuta Jimon has run away from home. Now he's arguing with his father over the phone before ending the call and wandering around. Suddenly, he bumps into his classmate Denge Komadori, who is just as surprised to see him. Denge must have been doing some last-minute grocery shopping, and Asuta guesses that she's having a hard time. Still, Denge enthusiastically announces that it's just part of her mission. Whatever mission it is, Denge refuses to disclose more. Then she reminds Asuta that a level 2 martial law has been declared for the night, so they must hurry and return home. Right after Denge left, a siren suddenly sets off, and every store closes simultaneously, causing Asuta to panic because he doesn't have anything to eat for dinner yet. He desperately knocks at one store, begging to let him buy some food. Luckily, the store allows it, but it turns out Asuta's credit card has been cancelled by his father, so he can only afford 2 buns with the coins he has left. Without even a place to stay, Asuta walks on an empty street alone. As he stops at a vending machine to get a drink, a convoy of military vehicles patrolling passes by, prompting him to hide in the dark alley. He turns around and is stunned to see a toppled kiddie bicycle and a little girl passed out beside it. His heart stops, as he initially thinks that the girl is dead. But then, when he checks on her up close, the girl suddenly moves to murmur that she's hungry. Then, Asuta lets her choose which flavor of buns she wants to take. The girl smiles widely, which changes into an evil grin, as she snatches both buns and eats them all by herself. Asuta sighs in disbelief as he watches the girl eat his food. After introducing himself to her, Asuta inquires whether the girl is lost. The girl responds she's not lost, but instead, she's on a top-secret reconnaissance mission right now and is looking for something. Of course, Asuta doesn't believe her and concludes that she's indeed lost. Although Asuta only thinks of her as a snotty little brat, the girl introduces herself as Kate Hoshimiya, the leader of an organization called Zvezda Secret Society, Venera the Great. Then Kate gets on her bike, and after realizing Asuta is in trouble, she convinces him to come with her. She says she will show him a dream far grander than anyone else's. Intrigued by Kate's words, Asuta follows her. Kate continues that this dream is too vast to be realized in a single lifetime, the ultimate ideal that neither villains nor heroes of legend have managed to achieve. Kate stops biking and turns to Asuta, asserting that the dream is the world conquest. Asuta is still trying to process Kate's words when a massive explosion suddenly happens nearby, bringing him back to his senses. The loud blast doesn't scare Kate at all. She then offers 2 things to him, a tear gas mask and a sweet bun. If he accepts them, it means Asuta agrees to join Kate in her so-called conquest. Asuta seems to not think too deeply about it when he takes the mask and the bun. And after he accepts them, Kate declares Asuta is now a member of the Zvezda and then gives him the nickname Deva. Another explosion happens. According to the news, the ground self-defense force is currently battling with what looks like a giant weapon that appeared in a particular area. While Asuta and Kate are walking side by side, a robot-like creature is eyeing them and targeting Kate. A mysterious woman with multiple mechanical hands is operating the robot. As she's intrigued by Asuta's identity, a warning alert pops up on the monitor because of an incoming enemy. And that's when she calls out to her comrade Plamia, another mysterious girl wearing an eye patch, who is surveying from the top of a building. As Asuta follows Kate, he notices the girl yawning and urges her to go back home and just continue her world conquest game some other day. However, Asuta calling it a game annoys Kate so much that she almost hits Asuta. Kate stops midway and suddenly becomes sad, staring at her hand. Kate shares she's looking for a friend and ally, Galactica, whom she dropped somewhere when she left their secret base. But based on how she describes her friend, Asuta thinks that it's a stuffed animal. They continue walking when Kate opens up about her worries. Will the thing she has been dreaming about ever since have a place once she succeeds in conquering the world? Seeing how anxious Kate is, Asuta gets worked up in an attempt to cheer her up, saying anyone can replace her, so she should stop putting on a cute happy-go-lucky act. Asuta's harsh words offended Kate, prompting her to punch him in the face and dash off on her bike. Asuta notices that extra wheels is detached from the bike, and it makes him worry about Kate's safety. He tries to catch up to her, but he only finds the bike parked across the street. He immediately crosses to the other side, unaware of the military vehicle coming towards him. He would have been run over if Plamia hadn't slashed the vehicle with her sword. Asuta is taken aback when Plamia grabs him by the collar and asks him aggressively whether he saw the little girl in the picture. He immediately recognizes the little girl in the picture, who is hugging what looks like a stuffed toy, to be Kate. And before he can answer, a skull-head man in military uniform comes out from the wrecked vehicle, slowly walking in their direction while eating a cake. Plamia calls him General Pepple. General Pepple reminds her not to harm an innocent. With the way Plamia talks back to him, it is apparent that she frequently defies and argues with the general. While Plamia and the general are preoccupied talking to each other, Asuta gets his chance to escape and run. He stops to retrieve the tear gas mask he dropped when he spots several helicopters flying over him. To his surprise, there's also a huge octopus-shaped creature in front of him, and then many military tanks closing in. A man wearing a tear gas mask suddenly appears near him, and cheering for the military troops as they begin to attack the octopus-shaped object. It's as if Asuta is caught in the middle of a war. When the military forces successfully destroyed the huge unidentified creature, 1,000 small and rounded objects fall down and swarm on the ground. Asuta sees the stuffed toy Kate was talking about, following with the swarming objects. He begs the man to help him, but he runs away in fear. However, Asuta is determined to retrieve the stuffed toy, so he blocks the way and grabs the toy. And when the military troop ignores his bravery and still decides to blow at him, Kate suddenly appears to protect him. Kate takes the toy, which turns out to be a strong weapon that she uses to defeat the military force. Later on, the member of the Zvezda organization gathers around. We see Plamia, General Pepple, Professor who operated the robot they called Roboco earlier, and Yasu, the masked guy who abandoned Asuta. Yasu is being punished by the members for accidentally pressing the button to switch the kurukurus, or the small and round creatures that swarmed them, into their armored scorched earth mode, aka the destructive octopus-shaped creature the military defeated. For this transgression, Yasu won't get dinner for a week. Meanwhile, Kate introduces Asuta, who is still clueless as heck as the new member of Zvezda. However, there's another organization called White Light that aims to bring down Zvezda. The White Light calls themselves the Warriors of Justice. The commander shows to their primary agents, White Robin and White Egret, the current members of Zvezda and its accomplishments. The agents who are wearing masks to hide their true identity are appointed to keep an eye on their arch-enemies' movements and locate their base of operations. Meanwhile, the following day after Zvezda's conquest last night, Asuta encounters Renge on his way to school. Renge suddenly mentions the heavily armed criminal organization that got into a battle with the military last night and warns Asuta to be careful. Asuta struggles to keep a straight face to hide that he's also become a part of the so-called criminal group his classmate is talking about. Because Renge is so concerned about him, Asuta subtly teases her of having a crush on him, making Renge blush. She firmly denies this and replies that she will help people in trouble without hesitation, so he shouldn't read into her actions too much. When the class is over, Asuta feels weak because of hunger. He leans on the window, and as he looks out, he notices a familiar girl carrying a sword staring back at him. He snaps when he recognizes it's Plamia, only in school uniform. He immediately leaves the school secretly while trying to avoid Plamia. But his attempt is unsuccessful, as Plamia catches up to him. Plamia's truculent tendency scares the hell out of Asuta. Plamia is ordered by Kate, or Lady Venera, to educate him about Zvezda's doctrine. Plamia brings him to the organization's base of operations. As they enter the base, Asuta is greeted by the Kurukurus and Natasha, who goes by the codename Professor Natasha warns him not to wander and go where he's not supposed to. Her cold gaze and warning send shivers to Asuta's being. As Asuta waits at the dinner table, he's taken aback when Yasu enters the room and proudly introduces himself as the chief soldier. But then it turns out he's just a lowly soldier who's almost like an errand boy within the base. Later on, Roboco and Professor join them at the table. Asuta is increasingly feeling anxious as to how he should clarify to them that he doesn't want to join the organization. He musters up his courage to speak up, but immediately retreats when General Pepple enters the room, followed by Kate. Seeing Asuta in the room, she then assumes that he had already agreed to be part of her group and he missed the chance to clarify himself. Then when the group learns it's Plamia who's cooking dinner, everyone except for Roboco and Kate is gone in a split second, to Asuta's astonishment. Kate and Roboco don't look too happy about staying either. It turns out that Plamia's cooking is terrible, as in can be considered a chemical hazard terrible. As they force themselves to eat, Asuta feels his whole life flash before his eyes. Later that night, Asuta leaves the base looking more miserable than ever. He passes out on the street when White Robin spots him. The agent is using a device that detects Vizda members' activity. With the help of this device, White Robin locates Vizda's headquarters, but she's sidetracked by the octopus-shaped monster that suddenly appears nearby. Yasu made a mistake again in activating Kurukuru's destructive mode. While White Robin is looking away, Asta manages to flip over the Zvezda headquarters sign and later notices that Kate is just behind him. Then, Plamia and General Pepple work together to turn back the monster to its Kurukuru form just in time. The White Light agents just stand there, witnessing the monster disappear before they can even do anything. After the chaos, Zvezda members gather as they watch Plamia, blaming Yasu for what happened. Yasu was rummaging for food when he accidentally switched on the monster mode. Asta comes to Yasu's defense and blames it on Plamia's horrible cooking. Despite Kate's effort to make them reconcile, Plamia challenges Asuta to cook dinner for them instead, which the latter gladly accepts. Asta is actually a good cook, leaving everyone satisfied with his cooking, including Plamia. The woman begrudgingly praises him and asks him to teach her how to cook. Meanwhile, the White Light agents head to the supposed location of the Zvezda base, only to find it gone without a trace. The following day in Zvezda base, Asta is in the kitchen preparing the ingredients, while Yasu is mumbling nonsense instead of helping and begins to light up a cigarette. The foul smell of the cigarette smoke causes the Kurukurus to pass out, triggering the emergency alarms. Those alarms detach the kitchen from the main house, throwing Asta and Yasu outside the base. Hearing Natasha's screams, Yasu immediately disappears to get away from punishment. It turns out, the organization strictly prohibits cigarettes, and Kate vehemently despises it. Kate commands General Pepple to discipline Yasu, and since the kitchen is a total mess, Kate decides for the members to eat out. However, as they are about to enjoy the delicious food in a restaurant, one customer suddenly wants to smoke. Kate fails to content her rage and gives the customer a firm scolding, sending him out of the establishment. And just as she calms down, she spots an ash bin outside the restaurant, causing her anger to spike up. Kate then decides to gear up along with her members, including Asta, to crush every smoker in town. The air is polluted with cigarette smoke that threatens the health of anyone who inhales it. So, Zvezda is going after smokers to teach them a lesson. Well, that's one way to do it. On the other hand, Asta, who is disguised in a black suit, tries to convince a woman to put out her cigarette. The woman just ignores him. Kate arrives to help persuade the woman. In the end, the woman leaves, but her yapping annoys Kate more, prompting the Zvezda leader to order Professor to create a device that will prevent smokers from inhaling their toxic fumes. Asta opposes using the device, knowing that it will eventually kill the smokers, but the civilians who also detest this act are in favor of Kate's plan. Hearing their sentiments, Kate rallies the residents to stand up for themselves and drive the smokers out of the city by all means. Meanwhile, Yasu refuses to go back to Zvezda, despite General Pepple's persuading. And as the residents' measures to banish the smokers become increasingly brutal, the smokers have also come together to fight back. This results in a war spearheaded by Zvezda. Kate uses her powerful weapon against the smokers, but to her surprise, it doesn't work on them. Even Roboco dysfunctions because of the smoke's thickness. Yasu laughs at them, which triggers General Pepple to take action, but Kate sends off a frightening vibe that prompts Yasu to come around. On the other hand, the White Light agents are just around the area, monitoring the Zvezda. They launch their own operation to take down the opposing organization by dropping a huge bomb on them, also known as Bad Guy Bomb. Those with evil hearts are the only ones who will be affected. White Light seems to want to wipe out the smokers and Zvezda at the same time. But before the bomb can explode, General Pepple uses his ability to shield everyone. After the explosion, the Zvezda and the non-smokers are already out of sight. The smokers, while not dead, are turned into inhuman creatures. In the days that follow, everything goes back to normal for the Zvezda. But the cigarette ban incident left a lasting mark in the city's history. As for Yasu, he's still a slacker who struggles with giving up his vices. We all can't be model citizens now, can we?
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.